Dear friends, welcome to the Priest Podcast, sponsored by the Napa Institute. You may not know it, but one of Napa's most meaningful efforts involves the formation and support of priests and religious. We have become fascinated by the stories of our clergy. Through this podcast, we want to bring you some of these amazing stories too, but in a way that is unique. Priests interviewing other priests from all walks of life and backgrounds. We think this series will be a great resource for everyone, those considering the priesthood, as well as those in active ministry who may be struggling or just looking for good ideas. But even the laity will benefit by learning more about the needs and thoughts of the clergy as we consider how to support and pray for them, given all they do for us. So sit back and enjoy this glimpse into the life and work of the priest.
Hello everyone, my name is Father Michael Duffy, Rector of the Cathedral of St. Agnes in Rockville Center, New York, and I'm today's host for the Shepherd Circle podcast, a production of the Napa Institute. I'm delighted to welcome to the podcast today Dominican Father Lawrence Lew. He entered the order in 2005 and took simple vows in 2006 and was ordained a priest in 2011. He did his STB studies at Blackfriars in Oxford and his STL studies at the Dominican House of Studies. He has a great interest in art, in liturgy, and he's currently based in Blackfriars at Oxford and is the Promoter General of the Rosary for the Dominican Order. Welcome to the podcast, Father Lawrence.
Thank you.
So I wonder, Father Lawrence, if we could start at the very beginning. Where did you grow up?
Well, I was born in Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia, and I grew up in a devout evangelical family.
Evangelical family? Yeah. Oh, wow.
Well, actually, my family were Plymouth Brethren, if people know what that means.
I certainly don't.
The Brethren are, I would say, quite puritanical.
Is that right?
And yeah, we would worship in literally a whitewashed plain hall with no imagery whatsoever.
Wow.
Not even a cross had to be, not even a cross.
Is that so? Wow. And how, when, where did you come to the faith?
Well, my parents, got divorced when I was quite young.
Yeah.
And my mother remarried a German man. Mm-hmm. And so his job took him from Kuala Lumpur to Singapore. Mm-hmm. And so I had to go with my mum to Singapore. And my mother, not being a very practicing Christian at that time, just wanted to send me to the best academic setting she could find. And so they sent me to a Catholic boys' school. St. Joseph's Institution, SJI, we call it in Singapore, is the oldest Catholic boys' school, oldest mission school in Southeast Asia, founded by the De La Salle brothers in 1852.
Oh, wow.
So anyway, they sent me there. I often tell people this story that God writes straight with crooked lines. Yeah. And I later discovered that my stepfather's company made a donation, quite a significant donation, to the school in order to get me to take the entrance exam straight away. Otherwise, you'd have to be put on a waiting list for several years.
Oh, wow.
But of course, they were moving straight away to Singapore. I needed to go to school. Yeah. So they said, how much will it cost?
Money talks.
I'm afraid it does. I'm sorry to say that. Yeah. And the school was in need at that time of raising money to rebuild its hall. Yeah. So anyway, I did take the exam, and I don't think I got any other privileges. So I think I did win a place to go to the school. And that period in that school, which was just for 3 years, in fact, was very, very significant because that's my exposure then to the Catholic Church for the first time ever.
Ever, yeah.
And it made me Catholic.
Is that right?
Yeah.
What in particular?
Well, so many different things. Partly the confidence with which the brothers, the La Salle brothers, and the Christian teachers sort of talked about the faith, and we had, there were retreats and all kinds of interesting things. And my first sort of understanding that this was a Catholic school was literally when I got out of the car and I saw a statue of St. John Baptist de La Salle.
Yeah, sure.
And I said, oh, this must be a Catholic school or something. Yeah. And I was quite worried about that because I didn't think that Catholics were really Christians.
Oh, wow.
I'd been reading Jack Chick tracts. I don't know if people are familiar with Jack Chick, and very anti-Catholic things. And basically I thought that Catholics were going to go to hell. And I remember telling my classmates this, that, oh, you're a Catholic, you're going to go to hell.
Wow.
And, we argued about it as kids can. And I said, look, I'm going to show you that you're wrong and I'm right. So I went to the library and I found a book by Alan Schreck, which is about Catholic and Christians. And it said, differences between Catholics and Christians. And I read this book, and it was very helpful because I began to understand that there is such a thing as history, and for church history, and the history of doctrine, as well as the development of doctrine. And that kind of shook my world a little bit and got me thinking. And eventually it was this exposure to the breadth of tradition, right? Of the history of the Church of Jesus Christ over the millennia. That was what really did it for me. And which opened up a whole world. I always say the Catholic Church is a great inheritor of Western thought, right? The Roman Catholic Church. Western thought, Western art and architecture, all these things which I became very interested in and have photographed all over the world. I sort of I loved that being opened up to me. And my school did a lot to do that. We had a beautiful chapel, modern, but full of art, and still figurative art. A lot of modern art can be faceless and in my opinion, not very attractive. But it was very beautiful and very peaceful sort of place. And it was a good place to learn about the Catholic faith. The brothers put on an annual vigil for Lent. It was actually the eve before Palm Sunday.
Okay.
And we would stay overnight in school, and there would be sort of penitential liturgies, and we might watch a movie. We watched The Mission, I remember that. And I thought this would be a fun way of hanging out in the school and talking to my friends and telling ghost stories. And the other funny thing is that I heard the announcement that there was going to be a Lenten vigil, and I thought they said lantern, as in the little lights that we carry. And I thought, oh, that sounds rather fun. We're going to be lighting lanterns and hanging out in school. Anyway, I went for this Lenten vigil, and it was just an eye-opener because I went to Mass for the first time on Palm Sunday.
Wow.
We had a little procession with palms. And all I remember really was the sun, the rising sun, rising behind the altar, coming through these beautiful stained glass windows, and hearing the words of sacred scripture, which I knew very well from my childhood because I used to read the Bible quite a lot, and hearing the words of scripture being proclaimed in the church, and then everyone starting to say, singing, holy, holy, holy. And I knew that this was the song of the angels worshiping God in heaven. And that was just breathtaking. I was very enamored by all that. On reflection, there was nothing particularly grand about that liturgy. It was quite, what I would now say, quite mundane. But anyway, it was a big step up coming from a non-liturgical tradition. And so the liturgy was what attracted me to begin with. The beauty of liturgy, and liturgy that takes you straight into the history of the church. So,
and it's interesting to be steeped in Western culture, to be steeped in history, is ultimately to be steeped in church history, and it's ultimately to become Catholic.
Yes, paraphrasing Newman, I think.
Right. Yes, exactly right. Yeah. So, when did you ultimately become Catholic then?
So I was about 14. Wow. Certainly from about the age of 13, 14, I started going to daily mass in school, because I was just so fascinated by the Mass. And I was unbaptized, so nevertheless, the old elderly Jesuit chaplain kindly would, I was one of the few boys going every day, so he asked me to serve the Mass. He taught me how to serve Mass.
As an unbaptized person?
He taught me how to be the sacristan, effectively, and set up for him and clear up afterwards. All the things that a priest would get a younger man to do. And I was also invited by the prayer team of the school to lead the school in prayer. So there'd be 2,000 boys, and I would lead the school in prayer, singing hymns during the school morning assembly. So I had a kind of prayer leadership position in the school, even before I went to the RCIA. I did join the RCIA in my local parish, which was very well attended. One of the most well-known RCIA programs because there were many people going. It was quite vibrant, lots of catechists. So we're talking about 1,000 catechumens a year.
Holy cow!
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. I was in, so to make it doable, they had 4 groups going. And 2 groups would be one for adults and one for so-called youth. That meant, I think, teenagers and to 25 or 30.
Right.
So I was in the youth segment. And one adult group and one youth group would be baptized at the Christmas midnight mass, and the other one at the Easter vigil, right? I always think it's deeply ironic that for someone like me who loves the liturgy, I was baptized at the midnight mass, and because there were so many people to be baptized, they had a faculty from the bishop for all the priests in the parish to be doing the baptisms concurrently. Wow. So they had the font, but then they had other little stations where you could be baptized. And so I was baptized literally into a plastic washing up bowl perched on the edge of the altar.
Oh my.
And
oh my.
with my kind of liturgical awareness, I've often thought, oh Lord, I love your sense of humor. And could we not just do it again properly?
Do you recall how many were baptized at that mass?
At my, I think there were almost 200 of us.
My goodness.
Yeah.
Wow. It's like something that you hear about with Francis Xavier in India,
Yeah. Wow. So this is Singapore, and it's Asia, and there's a great thirst for the fullness of the Catholic truth.
Beautiful. So you became a Catholic and embraced the faith in a beautiful way, and
at that time I was thinking about becoming a De La Salle brother. Really, sure. I loved the De La Salle order, and I remember talking to the brothers about this, and they said, no, we think that you should be a priest.
Wow.
And I didn't understand at that time that the De La Salle brothers didn't have priests. Right. So I said naively, oh, I want to be a De La Salle priest then. and when they said to me, well, then you'll be the second one after St. John Baptist De La Salle. And I said, okay, that's fine. Let's do that then.
That's fantastic.
So anyway, brother said that he thought I should become a Benedictine monk and a Benedictine priest. But I also remember vividly Vocation Sunday in my local parish. I went to the parish of the Holy Family in Katong in Singapore, and I remember I think it was a seminarian, talking about the great need for priests and so on. And it's like the Lord prods you internally, and I got this prodding feeling, and it's as if the Lord saying, "You could do that. Couldn't you help?" And I remember saying to someone after Mass, I said, that priest was saying that they needed more priests. I said, maybe I can help. Wow. So that was kind of the first inkling, I guess. And then I started to talk to brother a bit more about this. And the brothers basically said to me, well, look, don't think too much about it now. But if the feeling keeps coming back, especially after university, then this is something you must explore. Yeah. But I think, I was 16 and they were just more concerned that I would go to university and obviously settle in as a Catholic as well. I think that's really important.
Yeah, just to have that solid foundation, a good couple of years of being a Catholic, So where did you go to university?
I went to Leeds in the north of England.
Okay.
And I went to Leeds partly because I wanted to do Latin and church history.
Is that right?
And my father said no, because he said, what kind of job are you going to get? You're going to become a priest?
If only he knew.
Yeah, well, he said, with that kind of degree, you can only become a priest, basically. And I said, oh, no, I'm not going to. Yeah. Because one thing I did know is I didn't want to be deprived of my opportunity to go to England for the second time. Yeah. I say this because when I moved to Singapore, my parents had thought of sending me to boarding school in England, and my grandparents had objected, saying that I would learn all the wrong things, sort of being left with my peers and without any adults. I thought that would be wonderful.
Yeah.
But you can see how that, in God's providence, that really saved me, because it's precisely because they intervened that I didn't then go to boarding school in England, but instead went to a Catholic school in Singapore, and that made me Catholic. Wow. Right?
Changed the whole trajectory.
Exactly. Totally changed my life.
Yeah.
And the other thing that happened then is I decided to go to Leeds to study law, because my grandfather's a lawyer. That's my maternal grandfather. And my mother's also a lawyer, both trained in England. And so I was following in their footsteps, basically. And so I decided to choose law, and my father said, you can't be doing ecclesiastical history. So probably, it had things worked out in a different way. If I was living in this country, for example, I could have gone to minor seminary and then carried on, but I didn't. So I went to university. I was very active whilst I was in Leeds University. I was very active in various choirs. I've always enjoyed singing. At one point, I sang in 4 different choirs.
Oh, wow.
But I was my favorite was singing in the cathedral choir. Leeds Cathedral had and still has a great musical program, and I was awarded a choral scholarship. So a choral scholarship is basically a stipend that's given to someone to sing a set number of masses in the church. So I was given a choral scholarship. And that meant that I went to the cathedral for 4 years and sang throughout my time in university.
Yeah.
Now, being in the cathedral meant that I learned a different genre of music than what I was used to. So I like to think I have quite a wide repertoire of music.
Yeah.
And it's a Catholic cathedral, but we still sang quite a few Anglican anthems. So you learned great English music, as well as all the Latin polyphony and everything else. Learned to read, chant, and to love it. And I'd always loved chant anyway. I used to listen to Gregorian chant whenever I studied.
Yeah.
As a teenager.
Yeah.
And that's why brother has said to me, "You'd probably be a very good Benedictine."
Yeah.
But here I actually had to sing liturgy, sing Gregorian chant in the liturgy, sing Vespers.
It makes it real. It brings it to life.
Exactly. I used to I used to make up, or I used to pray the Divine Office on most feast days.
Yeah.
It was a gift actually given to me by my godfather, the Divine Office. I didn't know why he thought to do that. In fact, I was quite annoyed with him because it was such a thick book and difficult to figure out how to use it. And there was no internet really, or you could search how to use the Divine Office, no AI or anything like that. So
no app.
And my eye is not that great, so as in my intelligence to work out how to use the breviary.
And you figured it out.
I think I finally figured it out. Yeah. That took some time. And that was my first introduction to liturgy as something that is other than me and my current emotions.
Right. Directed towards somebody else.
Yeah. Well, it's the work of the church. Yeah. And it's the giving voice to the prayer of Jesus Christ in his mystical body, the church, right? And so, because it used to put me off that, if I wasn't feeling particularly happy, I would have to sing, I have to read Praise the Lord and all this.
Right.
And I suddenly realized, no, liturgy causes us to transcend ourselves and our current passions and emotions, and to rather have the emotions, you'd like to call it that, or the mind of Christ. And liturgy, I've always thought, is about really putting on the mind of Christ, and therefore resisting personal impulses and passions.
And so often we stay in that realm of feelings, right? And this doesn't feel good, or it doesn't feel comfortable, or I don't feel like doing it, or I don't feel close to God. I don't feel, as I say, the warm and the fuzzies, and so I stop doing it.
Yeah.
But when we move towards that objective, that this is true, this is real, this is good for me, even if I don't feel like doing it.
Yeah.
It brings us to a different place.
It took a few attempts for me to get there.
Yeah.
So a few Lents where I would try.
Yeah.
And I think after about 3 years, and certainly when I got to university, I began to understand the Divine Office better and to pray the Divine Office regularly. And then I would start to sing the Divine Office as a member of the cathedral choir. Now, to go back to the vocational question then, what's significant there is that this time in Leeds and as a choral scholar at Leeds Cathedral meant that I got to know the vocations director of Leeds Diocese, who was also the administrator of the cathedral and chaplain to the choir. I got to know him very well. Yeah. He's now a bishop in England, and he's actually met. He's had lunch with Tim Bush when we were in London.
Is that right?
Yeah, when we were in London.
Oh, that's fun.
He came to have lunch with all of us, so with Tim and Steph and everyone else. And Bishop Moja became a great friend and a great help. And so when in my final year in university as a law student, I realized that I didn't really like law very much. I'd only really done it to please my father. And I had a real passion for philosophy and theology. Yeah. And I figured this out in my final year because in my final year I was allowed to take a number of electives outside of the law school, so non-law electives. And so I chose to do sexual ethics and Christian liturgy. And I aced both the exams for I think I was top of my class for studying for Christian liturgy. Yeah. And everyone else had been doing a theology degree, and I kind of just zoomed in and...
It clicked.
Yeah. And I thought, well, clearly I'm not really meant to be a lawyer. It was such a struggle to do law, but really was quite easy to do liturgy and theology. Yeah. I loved it. And I was reading a lot of theology anyway. In fact, I remember at the age of 14, Veritatis Splendor came out.
Yeah, sure.
And I rushed to the Catholic bookstore to get hold of it.
Yeah.
Funny, in those days, of course, it would take time for things to be published and printed and all this. So I went on the day it was released, and they said, "Oh, it's not going to get to Singapore for another 3 weeks or a month." And I'm like, "What?" Now it's just there instantly on the internet. It's amazing.
It's a sea change. Yeah. So what brought you to the Dominicans, Father?
Well, eventually, so I applied to the diocesan priesthood.
You did,
yes, and I went to a diocesan seminary with Leeds Diocese.
How long were you there?
I was there for 3 years.
Oh, you were?
Yeah.
Wow.
And in fact, before that, the bishop actually sent me to be a pastoral assistant in a parish, because he wanted me to get to know what he calls a normal parish as opposed to a cathedral parish.
Interesting. Okay.
So he sent me to a West Yorkshire parish, working class Irish, they call it.
As the rector of the cathedral on Long Island, I won't take offense at that, the normal parish.
I guess he meant one which had rubbish music.
Oh, interesting, yeah.
Which it did.
Yeah, it did, yeah.
Guitars. I never encountered guitars in the Mass before until then.
Yeah, sure.
So I was, 22?
Oh my gosh, you were preserved.
Yes, and I've never sung Binders Together. I don't know if you know that, but...
No.
It's a little ditty.
Oh, is that right?
Binders together, Lord, binders together.
Oh, isn't that beautiful?
Binders together with cords, it says, of love, but still it sounds a bit creepy. Yeah. Anyway, I didn't have to sing Binders Together until I got to that parish. So, I went to seminary for 3 years, found it really difficult.
You did?
Partly because, I don't know how to say this in a nice way. I thought it was a little bit heterodox.
Interesting.
And I felt...
Even then, this would be in the 2000s, right?
This would be 2000, yeah.
2000, yeah. Even then.
With what I call the Millennium class.
You're right,
yeah. Even then. This seminary is now closed.
Okay.
Due to lack of students. In its heyday, it was wonderful. It was the seminary for the northern province of England, which means 8 dioceses, and they had over 500 seminarians. So one of these great, huge complexes. When I was there were 40 seminarians for these 8 dioceses. Yeah. I was actually
heterodox teaching obviously works so well to keep men enrolled, right? It never works.
Apparently, yes. It's been tried and tested. Yeah. And we know the results. Yeah. It drives people away. Yeah. So I found it very difficult, and in the end, I also discerned that I wanted to live in community.
You did.
I really did not like going back to an empty presbytery. I found that very, very challenging. And I think that kind of loneliness can lead to lots of addictive behavior.
Yeah, dangerous.
Yeah. And retail therapy was a great thing for me.
Yeah. It is amazing that I think every priest or brother that I've known that has gotten himself into trouble or had challenges is because he didn't have some type of community. As a diocesan priest, I don't live in community, but currently I'm blessed to live with brother priests. In fact, we have a large rectory. There's 6 of us that live together right now. And of course, I'm friendly with some than others, but we all get along. We have a very happy house. But even beyond that, the gift of friendship, I was able to interview Archbishop Coakley, and we talked with him about his friends and the role of having good friends as a priest, as a bishop. They would walk the Camino together, and the friends that you could, rely on and turn to. And so I certainly, I'm myself a diocesan priest. I'm not called to live in community the way you are, but I could see the pull towards it, and I could see the benefit of it too, because a solitary life is dangerous.
Yeah, I think it's dangerous, and the priest who I lived with, I think he was one of the few priests in the diocese who were happy to have a seminarian.
Is that right?
Coming to live with them during the summer months or
Is
whatever.
that right?
Yeah, many priests didn't want that sort of thing.
Cramps their style, as it were.
Apparently.
Yeah.
But anyway, I did find it difficult, and someone pointed out to me that when I was in seminary, I was trying to do things to build community, and I found a lot of resistance from my classmates.
Yeah.
And he said, have you not considered that maybe they don't want to build community because they're not going to live in communities?
Right.
And that was a real, again, a real turning point for me. And that's when I decided to eventually leave the seminary. It was kind of a mutual thing. The rector had called me in and basically thought that I should go.
Is that right?
And I felt that I should go too.
Yeah.
So when he said to me something like, you once told us that you wanted to explore, religious poverty, and you were thinking of spending some time with the Franciscan Friars of the Renewal. He said, well, we agree, maybe you should take some time out to do that too. And yeah, anyway, I shan't recount everything else we talked about, but I felt greatly relieved to leave that seminary. I took 9 months to actually decide to discern really what God wanted next. I think that 9 months, I find it very significant. It's like a time of gestation. And the priest that I lived with, Father Peter Dauber, was very generous, very kind, and he allowed me to continue to stay with him. And basically, I turned into his housekeeper. I would serve Mass every morning for him, and then I would do the cooking, and basically learn to cook in that year, or in those 9 months. Eventually, I thought at one point of going to Uganda as a missionary or doing some work there. But eventually, I discerned that I was called to religious life, and not necessarily to a monastery. I wasn't entirely sure. But I do recall going to Leeds Cathedral at one point, and Bishop Arthur Roach was giving catechesis at the front of the cathedral to the young people in the diocese. I sat in the back. The diocese had been dimly lit because the spotlight was on a huge icon of Christ that was hung in the sanctuary. So I sort of sat right at the back, looking at this icon of the Pantocrator, and not really listening to what the bishop was saying, just wanting to pray. And it seemed to me that the icon, the Lord said to me 3 times, "I still want you."
Wow.
Because I was sitting there thinking, what am I going to do? Shall I go to Kampala? Shall I, apply for a job at the Catholic bookstore here at the cathedral? What am I going to write in my CV? I didn't know what I was going to do or what I had to offer. And the Lord said, "I still want you." At that point, sometimes you feel very unwanted. So those words meant a lot.
Right.
And I sort of said, well, Lord, if that's the case, which religious order am I going to join?
Right.
So I went back to the presbytery, what you call the rectory, and I got online, so there was internet by now, and I started Googling every religious order I could think of. And the one that really fitted, it's like little lights go on your head, was the description of the Dominicans. Because of that combination of the monastic elements, so the sung divine office, living in community, the observance of the habit, and all these monastic elements. And then, of course, I was attracted to St. Thomas Aquinas and didn't realize that Thomas was a Dominican until I did this kind of research. So the intellectual tradition and theology, and then combined with the opportunity to preach and to teach, which I couldn't have done if I lived what I call a pure Benedictine life, which is just manual labor and prayer. So that's kind of what led me to the Dominicans. But really, it was through a search on the website, and the English province website was one of the first, probably the first English language Dominican website online, right? So I couldn't have found a US province or anything like that. And so, there was a checklist of what Dominicans do and what we're about, and it just ticked all the boxes. So I was very blessed to find that. That same evening, after I heard our Lord say, "I still want you," but nevertheless, I did meander a little bit. I went to a Benedictine abbey that did have a life of manual labor. Realized I wasn't cut out for manual labor. I had never done anything manual, really. I mean, the monk that the novice master I was talking to on the first day was putting a window in a roof, which I thought was very complicated work. And I was just handing him the tools. And I was watching him do this, and I thought, I don't think I could do anything like that. So I started to mow the lawn, which I quite enjoyed, because you just sit on a machine and just sort of drive it around. And went to the library in the monastery to read all I could read about Dominicans, because I thought I wanted to find out more about Dominicans. I enjoyed the liturgical life, but I realized, no, I want something that's going to use what I learn and to be able to teach that. And the image of Benedictines and Dominicans is that a Benedictine is like a bowl, and they sort of collect all the wisdom that comes from their contemplation in a bowl. Whereas a Dominican is like a funnel. Whatever they collect, it kind of flows out.
Wow.
So that image was very attractive to me, being some kind of funnel, really an instrument of the Lord. And so I decided then to join the Dominicans and to join the Dominicans in England. Yeah.
And so you entered the order. There was a period of formation.
Well, there's a bit more to the story. So after I made the decision, and lots of little anecdotes of divine signs along the way, but suffice to say that the day that I made this decision to inquire about the Dominicans, this was in Quor Abbey, at Benedictine monastery, and I went to Vespers after that decision was made in my mind, and in walks the monks, and walking in, just in front of the abbot was a white-robed Dominican from the USA, which was amazing. I took that to be a sign, of course. Yes. And he said to me, because I spoke to him about this, and he said, well, you need to contact the vocations director in England and in London and find out. So I did, and I went for interviews and met the community. And I was a bit disappointed when the community basically said, the vocations director said, you need to take some time out and discover yourself. Because you've gone from university straight into seminary, and you need to take some time out. And I kind of said that I'd been thinking about joining a volunteer program for lay missionaries run by Dominicans. And they said, yeah, do that.
Oh, wow.
Do that. So I went to the Philippines, which is, again, a very important sort of milestone. In the Philippines, I learned to love myself. Because I said that, when you leave seminary, you kind of feel a bit dejected, uncertain, what have I got to offer? And the Filipinos, in my experience, never ask you what you've achieved, what you can do, what degree you have. The moment they see you, they just said, come to my house. They welcomed me as their family. And they showed great love. They don't ask if you're rich or poor or whatever's going on in your life.
Something.
They just love you. And so I learned to love myself. I very much believe that, unless you experience love, you cannot love yourself, and then you cannot love others. And so that's very much God loving me, and showing me his love through the Filipino people. And of course, as you know, there are Filipinos now everywhere, right? They're basically running our basilicas in Rome. And it's been great. That time in the Philippines has meant a kind of instant connection with Filipinos everywhere, including when I was parish priest in London, in our church in London. We did a lot there, the Filipino community and I, to sort of revitalize the community and the parish. So anyway, 1 year in the Philippines, and then I applied to join the English province. I began my novitiate in 2005. A wonderful year, most memorable because, of course, that was the year that not saint yet, Pope Benedict XVI was elected that year. A great hero of mine. He's part of the reason that I became a Catholic through reading his books.
Do you have a recollection of which books?
Well, Ratzinger Report to begin with, and then Call to Communion.
Oh, interesting.
Which which introduced me to the idea of the church.
Yeah.
Because that's what I think a Protestant, certainly I as a Protestant, needed to understand, the importance of the church. And of course, Ratzinger's writings are so beautifully rooted in Scripture. He's got such a unique hermeneutic of how he draws out his theology from Scripture. So for a Protestant convert, that's really important.
Right.
Let's put it this way. When the conclave was going on after the death of Pope St. John Paul II, my evangelical relatives said to me, asked me who I thought would become Pope, and I said I had no idea. I didn't dare to say Ratzinger, but they said, we hope it will be Ratzinger.
Did they?
They said that. And in fact, I was in bed in Singapore when the white smoke went up.
Okay.
And this same evangelical uncle rang me on the telephone. I didn't have a mobile phone, so he rang the house phone again and again. And I only went to get the phone in the end because it was like 10 p.m. and I didn't want to wake my parents up. And it was my uncle saying, turn the white smoke, turn the TV on. So I turned the TV on, and I still remember standing there. And of course, when the name is announced, I literally just collapse on my knees, and I'm just in floods of tears. So it was a wonderful year to become a novice.
Isn't that funny? So that was I was a student at Fordham University when St. John Paul II passed away. And I remember the tremendous emotion because he was the only pope that we had known. And I remember weeping at his death, even though we knew that it was coming. But then the same thing happened to me. The floods of tears when Ratzinger was elected. His writings, in particular, the spirit of the liturgy, was something that moved me in college, and then throughout my seminary career. I would go back to that over and over again, just to be sustained and really to be formed. And so to see him be elected Roman Pontiff was... So they say there's a JP2 generation of priests. I think we are of the Benedict generation, right? Yeah, he was the Pope during my priestly formation, and then for the first couple of years of my priesthood.
Yes.
And so that moment, that you're right. It's an exciting time to enter the novitiate, and to it was a great time to be Catholic.
I mean, I'd gone from the seminary that I first went to had said. I still remember someone saying to me, "Why are you still reading all this Ratzinger? It's also passé."
Yes.
And so when he was elected Pope, really hope against hope that this should happen. It was just amazing. And the novitiate was probably one of the best years that, things have actually got better and better, to be honest. But I loved my novitiate year.
You did, yeah.
I had a great co-novice. There were just two of us. We were both called Paul. That's my baptismal name.
Is that right? Yeah.
And so one of us had to change our names. And the other Paul was very clear that he didn't want to change his names because he thought his parents would kill him.
Yeah.
They were already struggling with him, entering religious life. He left eventually. So I chose... I was quite excited because I knew this was a traditional thing to do, and I thought, yeah, why not? So I chose Lawrence because the parish where I lived and worked in the Philippines is called San Lorenzo Ruiz and Companion Martyrs. So I named chose that name from the protomartyr of the Philippines, Saint Lawrence Ruiz.
Yeah.
I wanted Lorenzo, but my novice master is quite firm. It had to be in English, a name that's anglicized.
Yeah.
So Lawrence it is, and Lawrence Lew sounds all right, I guess. Better than my other choice, which was Bartholomew. So Bartholomew Lew was just ridiculous.
It doesn't flow.
No, it doesn't flow. And So that was 2005, and in 2006 I made simple profession, and then moved on to Oxford to Blackfriars.
Yeah. And you've been there ever since, or?
No. Well, of course I was. I was there until 2011.
Yeah.
And after ordination, I was sent to the University of Edinburgh, where I was assistant chaplain for 4 years, and also got involved as chaplain to the Scouts of Europe, a movement that I still very much support, and I'm currently the national chaplain for the Scouts of Europe in England. So I did 4 years in Edinburgh, and after that I was sent to do my STL at the Dominican Council of Studies in Washington, D.C., which again was epoch-changing. Apart from anything else, I learned to pray the Rosary in that house.
Is that right?
Yes. Learned to pray the Rosary better, let's put it that way, with more intention. I did my Tessina under the direction of Thomas Joseph White.
Oh, wonderful.
And it was just a good time to be there, and also to be introduced to the American Church and all its wonders. I used to help out at the National Shrine with confessions, which is great as well, because, I heard more confessions in those 2 years than I had in the previous 4 years.
Is that right?
Yeah, definitely. And the quality of confessions in the States, I've always said, are amazing.
Oh, wow.
People really do come with broken hearts, and they do examine their consciences by and large, and they do accuse themselves of sins, as opposed to sometimes they get very therapeutic kind of things, people talking about how they feel rather than what they've done.
What they've done, and so often we have to wade through that and just say, okay, what are you here for? What are you sorry for, rather, and just really get to the heart of the matter. And hearing confessions in a place like the Basilica over and over and over again, it trains you to be a better confessor.
Absolutely, because you get such a wide range, because that's the first time I'd ever heard the confession of a priest. Wow. Or a nun. Right. So that was great, really good experience. And since then I've been back to the States, several times a year for retreats, where I give retreats and missions together with American Dominicans, and we hear hours and hours and hours of confessions.
There's nothing better than going to bed exhausted from a hard day's work of hearing confessions and being a priest, right?
It's very beautiful. Yeah. Very, very humbling as well. As I say, people do come with broken hearts, and also stories of the tragedies of their life. I really think that if a priest doesn't hear confessions regularly, it will really affect his priesthood in a negative way.
Absolutely, I'm 100% convinced of that, Father.
You'll be a less effective preacher and teacher, and definitely less effective pastor.
Sure.
Right?
Father, I think one of the ways I came to know about you before I even met you was through your photography, and through, I guess because of that, your real love of art and beauty, which is, I guess, is part and parcel of the Dominican life, truth, beauty, and goodness. I wonder if you'd talk to us. I know you had a hand in the New Liturgical Movement, which was a really popular website, still is, I guess, right? Yeah. Blog. I've been reading that since I was in high school, I think in college, just to be, again, encouraged and inspired in our love for the liturgy. I think our generation in particular fell in love with the liturgy in a way that previous generations hadn't, because we recognize this is where heaven and earth meet. And beautiful liturgy moves mountains. It speaks to us a language. So I know you have a love for the liturgy, you have a love for the arts. Weave it all together for us.
Well, the liturgy is the locus, the place in which beauty is created, and where beauty, Christ himself, is encountered. And therefore, knowing this, Catholic artists throughout the ages have always served the liturgy. And I love the fact that in the liturgy, every material art is brought to bear upon it, whether it's the lace that trims the linen. Just look at that and think how much effort and skill has gone to that. And the people who denigrate lace have no idea how lace is made and what a great tradition it is, in the sense that someone has handed on the patterns and the knowledge and the wisdom. It really represents a particular culture. So I think that every aspect of the liturgy uses the talents and skills and the best that that humanity is capable of, all for the glory of God.
Right.
And that in itself is an image of what happens in the liturgy. In the liturgy, that which is natural is transcended by grace, and we are elevated beyond our natural limits, correct? We're elevated to become, to the realms of divinity.
Right.
Right? Grace doesn't destroy nature, nor modify it, but elevates it. And it's the same, flax doesn't become linen, or the cocoon of a silkworm doesn't become silk and damask without someone acting on it.
Right.
The difference, of course, is that God acts internally, right? Grace works within us rather than God is not external to us. Right. That's why it's just an analogy, of course. But I had an opportunity last year to put all this into writing, I guess. I can't say it's my best work. I did it in the time I had available. But our Sunday visitor had contacted me and said they really wanted to work with me on a book. They wanted a book about the symbolism of saints. They wanted to understand how I knew, just from looking at the artwork, which saint was there.
Interesting, yeah.
And I sort of said to them, okay, let's do that. I'm happy to do that if I have time. I was then, when they contacted me, I was prior of the Dominican community in London. I was a parish priest or pastor of the church that was attached to that. And I was rector of the Rosary Shrine. And I was promoter general of the Rosary.
Holy cow.
So with those 4 hats, I didn't know if I had time to write, but I accepted the challenge. And I said, when I find time, I'll do it. I used to be able to work late at night, and I only sleep about 5 hours a night anyway.
Oh gosh.
So that's how I managed to fit a lot of things in. To be honest, as I've got older, I can't really work at night as well as I used to. I used to, in Oxford, we have to write 1 paper every week, sometimes 2 papers a week. Each paper I would have to skim read or, let's say, gain resources from about 20 books.
Wow.
So we learn to process and think very quickly and to write efficiently. And that's why I can sort of write a book quite quickly. I don't think I've admitted this before, but I wrote this book for OSV. It's called Entering Heaven on Earth, the Signs and Symbols of Catholic Churches and the Saints. Okay, and I said to OSV, let's not just do the saints, but let's do elements within a church, symbols within the church, and then the church itself, the building, as a symbol. So what does the dome symbolize? What does the spire symbolize? All that kind of stuff. And I wrote all this in 2 weeks.
Holy cow.
I wrote in 2 weeks, and I spent another 2 weeks searching for the photographs to illustrate it.
Yeah.
Because they also insisted from the beginning that it should be illustrated, if possible, entirely by my photographs.
By your own photos?
Yeah.
And you've been taking pictures for quite a while, right? So you have a catalog.
I've been doing it for over 20 years.
Yeah.
So I have like 300,000 photographs. So
Are they well ordered, or did you have to go fishing?
they're reasonably well ordered. I use Lightroom, and they are tagged. But nevertheless, it took me 2 weeks to find 450 photographs. And of those 450, I think it's down to 180 or so in the book itself. So yeah, that's kind of a book that's been in the making, in the sense that it's been percolating for many years.
Yeah.
From the time that I went from a teenager who worshipped in a whitewashed room and encountered the beauty of my school chapel in Singapore, and then encountering the great cathedrals. As a chorister, for example, with Leeds Cathedral, we would have choir tours, and we would start to sing in like Chartres Cathedral, Notre Dame in Paris. I've sung in all these places, and so appreciated great architecture.
How'd you get involved with the New Liturgical Movement?
I was one of the first active bloggers in 2003, 2002.
Right.
I had a blog called contemplare.blogspot.com, and the blog itself is called Contemplata agis Tradere. And I was then, another great blog in the US was called the Shrine of the Holy Whopping. Do you remember that?
I do. Holy cow, yeah.
And Matt Alderman was one of those who wrote it. So Matt Alderman, then an architectural student, was...
I love his drawings, yeah.
He was contacted by Sean Tribe to, Sean was saying, I'm thinking of starting this blog, you're blogging, how would you like to join? And then Matt Alderman suggested that I should join as well, because I often wrote about liturgical themes and so on. So the three of us sort of got together with a few others. I think there were only 5 of us to begin with. Right. I'm still in touch with Matt. I don't think I've actually met him, but more surprisingly, I have still not had a chance to meet Sean Tribe.
Is that right?
Yeah, we've had many, many discussions. We've never even had a Zoom meeting. I have no idea what his voice sounds like.
Wow. It's amazing what the internet and blogs could do and bring people together from around the world. But also do a lot of good for the church too, right? And help priests.
When I was newly ordained priest in 2011, I was assigned to Edinburgh. And in my first week, I went for a new clergy event at the diocese. And the auxiliary bishop at the time came up to me straight away and he said, "Father Lawrence, welcome to Edinburgh." And I said, hello, Bishop, how do you know me? He says, well, I've been reading New Liturgical Movement for years.
Isn't that funny?
And I just couldn't believe it. I was so enthused that a bishop was reading this. And likewise, this morning I met Cardinal Burke, and he said, he looked at my name, he says, "I know you." He said, he said, "I know you." And I said, he said, "You do all this stuff on beauty and photographs and all." So I'm like, okay, it's pretty cool.
It precedes you, what a gift to go from a whitewashed room to the cathedrals of Europe, to the Dominican order, to now making beauty present on an altar when you celebrate Mass, and to, in a beautiful way, be able to increase devotion to our Lord's Mother through the Rosary. I'm fascinated by your title. You have one of the coolest titles in the world, the Promoter General.
Yes. I mean, that in itself is worthy of another hour, I think. But again, briefly, there have been several podcasts and articles about this point, about how, as a Protestant, I was quite skeptical about anything Marian. I remember saying, I don't really need Mary. All I need is Jesus. And Mary sort of making herself known to me through Our Lady of Guadalupe, and through events which I can only describe as supernatural, where I was made aware of her motherly care and of her mantle of protection. And eventually this kind of culminates in 2010 in a terrible bus accident that I was in on the road from London to Oxford, and the bus, a double-decker bus, overturns on its side, and it's the 12th of December. Basically, it was 11th of December, but it was nearing midnight. And when the accident happens, and I now know that I saw the next morning when on the television, because the news cameras had zoomed in and filmed this, when the bus was righted again, all the windows had smashed on the side that I was leaning against, except the window that I was next to. And I saw this as a reminder of Mary's protection. She says, "Are you not under the mantle of my protection?" Right? She says, "This is Juan Diego, and I've always felt Mary's protection ever since I first encountered the Guadalupe image, which happened in the Philippines when I did that year there between just before I entered the order." And so it took time for Mary to make herself known to me. It took time for me to get to learn the Rosary. As I mentioned, really it was only in 2015 that I started to pray the Rosary with intention. And then after my time in Washington, D.C., I was sent to London to the Rosary Shrine. The Rosary Shrine in London is a beautiful, spectacular church, unique in the world. It has one stone-carved altar and altarpiece for every single mystery of the Rosary. So this church has 20 altars altogether, and it's truly unique. And that's probably the one thing I'm proudest of, to have been made rector of the Rosary Shrine, to have had the opportunity to contribute to this beautification. I gilded the walls of the apse with 24 karat gold, and restored the Rosary altar, put new statues or put back statues which had been there, which had gone missing. So it was a wonderful time, and over the 7 years, I was able to revamp the spiritual programming of the place. So I'm proud to say that, thanks to the grace of God, the Rosary Shrine now has daily adoration, daily confessions, daily ad orientem masses, Dominican rite sung mass every Sunday.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Father, I think we're getting to the end of our time together, but there's so much we could keep talking about and going in so many different directions. Yeah, but an awful lot of fun to be with you, to get to know you, and to be inspired by your life story. My goodness, what different directions it could have gone, but our Lord and Our Lady certainly had a desire that you be one of His priests. I wonder if maybe we'll close with this. What do you say to a young man who's in the process of discerning and just doesn't know where to turn, what to do?
I'll give a very Thomistic answer.
Please.
Okay. And St. Thomas Aquinas says that if you desire perfection, meaning you want to go to heaven, then it's a no-brainer. Become a religious.
As a Dawson priest, I mean, it is a higher calling, I will admit that.
And he says that because it's the way of what he calls the way of perfection, right? Yes, he means in fact now the celibate life. Some married people might find it very difficult, but Thomas does say that this is the life of the angels, right? To be intent on the worship of God, and being religious means that you spend more of your time doing things of God. And he says, if that is what you want, and knowing that this is the way, why do you spend many hours or years prevaricating and wondering about that? Basically, he says, unless there were huge obstacles, right, personal obstacles, obstacles in your temperament or whatever it is, he says basically you should go for it, offer yourself, and then entrust yourself every day to the grace of God. Because after all, the priestly vocation, indeed I think any vocation of holiness, is ultimately the work of God's grace. And so we begin each day with a morning offering. I think 1 decade of the Rosary is a great morning offering, to begin to say to the Lord, or to Our Lady, totus tuus sum Maria, right? You give yourself to Mary and allow that grace of God to make something beautiful of the clay of our lives.
And I think your life, your vocation, I feel it in my own heart, is proof of that our Lord and Our Lady can do tremendous things with broken material, right? Because we're not perfect. None of us claim to be, but we love what we're doing. You love your vocation as I love mine, and I know the listeners and the viewers of this podcast love being priests, or they certainly love the Lord and they want to do something great with their lives. And I can't think of anything greater than being a priest of Jesus Christ.
Can I just say, I am always very inspired when I meet diocesan priests in this country and in England. You guys have very hard jobs.
Thank you for saying that, Father. I often say we're on the front lines, but without the religious praying for us behind our backs, and we wouldn't be able to do it. But the parish priesthood, we see everything, right? From womb to tomb and everything in between.
It takes great courage, I think. But as always, Jesus says, be of good cheer, have courage. I have overcome the world, and He is with us.
I've been trying to weave this in for a little bit just to wrap it up. You mentioned your time at that school as a child with the Christian Brothers. My best friend from high school became a Christian brother de la Salle. So imagine in God's providence that two best friends, one will become a priest and one will become a brother. He's now their vocation director.
Wonderful. Praise God. That's great.
Awesome?
That is wonderful.
So, dear friends, it's been great having a chance to talk to Father Lawrence Lew, a Dominican father from Blackfriars in London, about his priestly vocation, his Dominican vocation, his life and his work, and especially to hear about his love for beauty, his love for the liturgy, his love for the Lord Jesus. The Lord Jesus, who does urge us to pray to the harvest master for laborers for his harvest. So please join us in praying for shepherds after Jesus' heart, and encourage the young men that you know who show signs of a vocation to a priesthood, to ask whether Jesus might in fact be calling them to serve Him, to serve the church, and to serve the world as a priest. I'm Father Michael Duffy, and I've been delighted to be your host today here at the Shepherd Circle podcast, a production of the Napa Institute. God bless you.
Thanks again for joining us today. For more information about how you can join us in supporting our work with clergy and religious, go to napa-institute.org. May God bless you this day and always.